Psychedelics in old age, an ideal combination. Getting stoned, taking magic mushrooms or ecstasy, that's what teenagers and young adults usually do. At some point, when they have become reasonable, they come to their senses and switch to the more socially accepted consumption of alcoholic beverages. Is this narrative true? Born in 1950, I come from a generation that probably had the broadest experience with psychoactive substances other than alcohol. Not all, but a considerable minority of the baby boomer generation to which I belong. I myself hardly smoked more than 3 joints in my younger years. I was far too scared to try LSD as my friends did. I was 51 when I tried for the first time magic mushrooms. My experiences with psychedelics and the pathogene MDMA since then have become part of my spiritual practice in addition to meditation and yoga. And I am in good company. There are many other people in the second half of life who have been guided and inspired by these powerful substances for many years. I spoke to 9 of them and recorded their experience. Their reports you find in my book Elysium hin und zurück, mit Psychedelika unterwegs in der zweiten Lebenshälfte. In my book, I asked all my contact partners the questions which I have handed out to you. As for example, at what age did you first try psychedelics or MDMA? For what motives? What was the setting like? In which life situations, stages of life have you taken psychedelics and empathogens since then? What experiences and insights can you gain? Has your use of these substances changed over the years? If yes, why? And so on. You'll find the questions. Let me tell you some results. Contrary to my expectations, only 2 of the people portrayed had their first experiences with psychedelics and empathogene MDMA in their youth, at 15 and 18. 3 were in their late 20s at the first time of their contact with psychedelics. 1 was 36, 1 39, 1 47, and 1 49 years old. At the time of the interviews, my conversation partners were between 53 and 73 years old. With the exception of 1 person, they were still on the path of the psychonauts. 1 person came from the Zen meditation practice. He tried MDMA for several years, and he quit because he was disappointed by the experience he made. The professions or professions before retirement mentioned were youth worker, psychiatric carer, all-rounder, proofreader, and high school teacher, software engineer, natural healer and vocational school teacher, social pedagogue, psychotherapist. 6 of the contact persons have children, 4 of them are grandparents, ordinary people, as you can see. What the 9 persons have in common is their search for self-knowledge and for answers to existential questions in life. By using psychedelics and MDMA, they want to find out who they are in their deepest being and what their important topics in life are, but also where they need healing on a physical or psychological level. Spiritual and mystical experiences on their trips should help them to find this out. All of the people I portrayed have been using psychedelics and MDMA for many years. At the time of my interviews, they had between 10 and 31 years experience. It is therefore certainly correct to speak here of long-term psychedelic experience. This is important to see. Due to the long-lasting stigmatization from which psychedelics research was not accepted, there is a lack of long-term studies about effects of psychedelics. Apart from a few follow-up studies, there are no long-term studies on the effects of psychedelics so far. It is noticeable that none of my contact persons use psychedelics or MDMA in party setting, except in their very young years. Instead, they always chose a form of supervised setting, either, in the case of two of them, as part of a psycholytic therapy, in an individual or group setting, or in guided psycholytically oriented experience groups, or like myself, in a guided shamanistic experience group. With increasing experience, the psychonauts portrayed also traveled alone. But even then, they ensure a safe set and setting. What the 9 portraits also show, with increasing age, the integration of psychedelic trips into everyday life becomes more important. The people I spoke to showed a strong desire to integrate their experiences into daily life. In some cases, integration already begins during the trip, when insights can arise that have a strong impact on actions or changes in everyday life. Several of the people I portrayed let flow their experiences with substances in their work with patients or in vocational education, or their work with elderly people. My contact persons also said that they had been able to improve difficult relationships, for example, to children or parents. There was one guy in the book, after his second or third trip with mushrooms, he went on the way home to visit his mother. He had a difficult relationship with his mother. And on the trip, he felt a strong urge to speak with her. So he visited her, and she was very astonished to see her son. And they had a very good talk, and their relationship changed. And he could help her then when she got sick, and when she died, he was also there. That's very nice. And that brings me back to my assumption that the second half of life is an ideal time for being accompanied by psychedelics and empathogen as MDMA. The people I interviewed were between 53 and 73 years old. In other words, not really old yet. However, I would go so far as to say that psychedelics can also have an important function in old age. Due to the physical limitations in old age and the restricted outer radius, the potential to expand or re-explore the inner world becomes greater. One's own death and dying come closer. As you get older, you have to let go a lot of things that seemed to be given and immovable. To agree with what still is one of the most difficult things of all. In old age, this is even more true, but this is exactly where psychedelics and MDMA can have a healing effect. Why? First, during an LSD or mushroom trip, you have to surrender to completely new experiences, which you cannot control. You are forced to let go the control of your mind. On the journey into other dimensions, the ego dies and you open yourself up to the unknown, just like in the moment of your death. From my own many years of experience, I have come to the professional conclusion that psychedelic journeys are basically exercises in good dying, or the dying well. Second, fears can increase when you get older because life becomes more fragile. An empathogen such as MDMA allows you to look for a few hours without fear at things that would otherwise frighten you. The anxiety relieving effect can go so far that you can accept all the limitations and losses that come with getting older. Third, unresolved lifelong feelings of guilt can dissolve under the influence of psychedelics and empathogens and make way for a deep feeling of happiness and love. No one should miss this experience, especially in old age. I think there is a book about the 5 most great problems for people when they die. And one is not to have solved personal difficulties in relationships. So I remember that. The precondition for a positive experience with these powerful substances is that one is mentally healthy enough not to need to take psychiatric drugs, which neutralize the effect of psychedelics. But this applies to all age categories. Apart from that, however, psychedelics in old age could help people to stay mentally healthy for longer. Albert Hofmann, the discoverer of LSD, considered LSD in low doses to be more suitable to stimulate blood flow to the brain than conventional preparations on the market. He himself used it in this way in his old age. It remains to be seen whether microdoses of LSD can reduce the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease or dementia. Just now, the Beckley Foundation is developing, in collaboration with experts in geriatrics and neurodegenerative diseases from the University of Bâle, the world's first controlled clinical trial to study the effects of microdosing LSD for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. The focus of the study lies on apathy, cognition, mood, and quality of life, both in early and more advanced stages of the disease. A certain degree of caution is recommended when using MDMA in the second half of life. Older people with well-controlled blood pressure can take MDMA. However, the blood pressure medication should not be set down during the trip. After a heart attack or heart surgery, it is necessary to wait until the cardiovascular situation is stable before taking MDMA. If age-related depression is present, physical causes must be ruled out in advance and treated if necessary. MDMA should generally only be taken in combination with psychotherapy for age-related depression. People with an adult onset diabetes should be careful to maintain their usual snacks while taking MDMA. Attention must also be paid to signs of low blood sugar during the MDMA experience. I spoke with a doctor about these issues. He leads journeys, psycholytic journeys in Switzerland. Last but not least, men with prostate problems should be careful when taking MDMA. MDMA stimulates kidney activity and leads to increased urine output. This in turn can increase existing prostate problems and even lead to kidney-threatening urinary retention. As far as the set and setting are concerned, you should perhaps be a little more careful in old age that the set and setting are coherent. Assistance in an emergency should be ensured. As far as dosage is concerned, doses in the medium range should also be problem-free for older people. Let me summarize. Anyone who consumes psychedelics and then pathogenic substances can continue to do so in second half of life and even old age, at least if they observe certain precautionary measures. In my view, psychedelics and empathogens are ideal means of dealing with the challenges and limitations of old age in a more spiritual, age-appropriate way. I am now 73. Do I handle these powerful substances differently today? I would say yes. I am traveling with lower doses than 20 years ago. I learned better to navigate on the trips. The trips themselves have become calmer and also more sober, nüchterner. And I often simply land and remain in a pleasant silence. My everyday life, on the other hand, has become perhaps a little more spiritual since I use psychedelics. I have more often the feeling of being related with everything. I can still see the world anew, as if I were seeing a butterfly or a rose for the first time. Albert Hoffmann describes in one of his books this very nice, the sight of the child, that LSD leads you in a situation where you were a child and you see everything for the first time. And yes, I am often simply grateful for life, only that I'm living. And not to forget, I am still learning how to accept the difficult aspects of getting older. There are still difficult aspects. Letting go, being okay with what remains, a process that only ends when you die.